Welcome to Capital Catch-Up, the podcast that translates the latest moves in Congress into plain language insight. I'm Victor.
And I'm Leni. Today we're unpacking a packed docket, a dozen bills ranging from emergency reporting to biotech education, several high-profile nominations, a busy House Rules Committee meeting, and the highlights from the two most recent congressional records. Let's get started. Times asterisk the bills.
Let's begin with the two emergency reporting measures. House Bill 5200, the Emergency Reporting Act, is designed to modernize how local, state, and federal agencies share real-time data during natural disasters, terrorist incidents, or public health emergencies. The bill calls for a standardized digital platform that would integrate 911 calls, weather alerts, and hospital triage information.
That's a big upgrade from the patchwork of legacy systems we still see in many jurisdictions. Historically, after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, Congress passed the Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act to improve coordination, but gaps remained. If the Emergency Reporting Act passes, everyday Americans could see faster alerts on their phones and more efficient resource deployment. Think quicker evacuation orders and better shelter placement.
Right next door is House Bill 5201, the Carries Law Reporting Act. Carries Law originally required multi-line telephone systems in public buildings to have a direct 911 dialing option. This new reporting act would require annual compliance reports from building owners to the Federal Communications Commission, creating an audit trail to ensure the original safety intent isn't lost.
It's a classic example of a law of the law. After a safety law passes, Congress often adds a reporting requirement to keep it from slipping through the cracks. For families, that means more confidence that the building they work or live in can actually get a 911 call on the first try.
Moving on, we have two versions of Lulu's Law, House Bill 2076 and Senate Bill 1003. Both aim to strengthen protections for domestic animals against cruelty, specifically targeting illegal breeding operations. The Senate version adds a provision for federal grants to state animal welfare agencies for enforcement training.
The bipartisan nature, identical language introduced in both chambers, signals strong support. Historically, the Animal Welfare Act of 1966 was the first federal animal protection statute, but it left many loopholes. Lulu's Law could close those gaps, and the grant component would help states that often lack resources for inspections.
Next up is House Bill 6398, the Red Tape Act. The bill proposes a regulatory impact clearinghouse within the Office of Management and Budget. Agencies would have to submit a cost-benefit analysis for any new rule that imposes a compliance cost over $10 million. The goal is to cut unnecessary paperwork and speed up rulemaking.
Critics argue it could slow down needed environmental or consumer protections, but supporters say it will prevent wasteful bureaucracy. For a small business owner, fewer redundant filings could mean lower operating costs and more time for growth.
Speaking of the environment, House Bill 6409, the Fences Act, focuses on wildfire mitigation. It would authorize the Department of the Interior to fund fuel break projects, strategic removal of vegetation to create fire breaks, especially in the western states, where climate-driven wildfires have surged since the early 2000s.
That ties directly into the Clean Air Act amendment discussions we'll see later. By reducing the intensity of wildfires, the Fences Act could lower particulate matter exposure for millions of Americans, improving public health and reducing healthcare costs.
House Bill 8268, the Biotechnology for All High School Students Act, is a forward-looking education bill. It would allocate $250 million over 5 years for labs, teacher training, and curriculum development in public high schools, aiming to give every student hands-on experience with CRISPR, bioinformatics, and synthetic biology.
The historical context is the 2008 America Competes Act, which boosted STEM after the STEM crisis narrative. This new bill updates that vision for the biotech era, potentially widening the pipeline for future scientists and addressing the current shortage of skilled workers in the biotech sector.
On the tax side, House Bill 8277 amends the Internal Revenue Code to designate copper as an, quote, applicable critical mineral. It also allows ore extraction costs to count toward the Advanced Manufacturing Production Credit. This is part of a broader push to secure supply chains for clean energy technologies.
Copper is essential for electric vehicles, renewable energy wiring, and grid upgrades. By treating it as a critical mineral, The bill could incentivize domestic mining and processing, reducing reliance on imports from geopolitically unstable regions. For everyday Americans, that could translate into lower EV battery costs down the line.
House Bill 8279 expands the definition of institution of higher education in the Higher Education Act to include certain graduate medical schools located abroad. The intent is to allow U.S. students to receive federal financial aid for those programs, broadening access to specialized medical training.
Historically, the Higher Education Act of 1965 focused on domestic institutions. This amendment reflects the increasingly global nature of medical education and could help address physician shortages, especially in underserved areas.
House Bill 5376, the Impacts and Outcomes for Health Career Training Act, creates a new grant program to evaluate the effectiveness of health career training pipelines. Think community college nursing programs, allied health certifications, and apprenticeship models. It mandates annual reporting on job placement and wage outcomes.
That data could guide future funding and help students choose programs with proven ROI, which is crucial as tuition costs keep climbing.
We also have a series of procedural and symbolic measures. House Concurrent Resolution 1156 expresses support for tax policies that benefit working families. While it doesn't create law, it signals the House's priorities and can shape upcoming tax legislation.
House Concurrent Resolution 1174 is a bundle. It directs the House Rules Committee to consider 3 Clean Air Act amendment bills: House Bill 6387, the Fire Act, House Bill 6398, Red Tape Act, and House Bill 6409, Fences Act, and also references the tax policy resolution we just mentioned. It's a way to streamline debate on related measures.
House Resolution 1176 elects members to certain standing committees of the House. Committee assignments are the engine room of Congress. Who sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee, for example, can heavily influence the fate of the red tape and fences bills.
Finally, there's House Concurrent Resolution 965, which provides for consideration of House Bill 1689, the Haiti Temporary Protected Status (TPS) bill. TPS would grant Haitian nationals temporary legal status and work authorization in the U.S., a humanitarian response to ongoing crises in Haiti.
House Bill 1689 itself lays out the criteria and duration for that TPS designation. If enacted, it could affect roughly 200,000 Haitians already in the U.S., offering them stability and access to benefits. NIAMS asterisk the nominations.
Turning to the nominations, the Senate is confirming a mix of judges, diplomats, and agency leaders. Let's start with the judiciary.
We have 3 district court nominees for Kansas: Anthony W. Mativi, Anthony J. Powell, and Jeffrey M. Kuhlman. All 3 are slated to fill vacancies left by senior judges retiring. Their confirmations will shape the federal bench's approach to civil rights, environmental, and criminal cases in the district.
In Texas, Andrew B. Davis is nominated for the Western District. Given the district's heavy docket on immigration and energy sector litigation, his background will be closely watched.
On the appellate level, Justin D. Smith is nominated to the 8th Circuit, which covers states from Missouri to Minnesota. That seat has been vacant since Judge William Dwayne Benton announced his retirement. The 8th Circuit often hears major labor and agricultural cases, so Smith's philosophy could have regional impact.
The diplomatic nominations include Catherine Dillon as Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs. That bureau runs programs like Fulbright and the International Visitor Leadership Program. Her leadership could affect how the U.S. projects soft power abroad.
Yu Kim is nominated as the U.S. representative to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, with ambassadorial rank. ASEAN is a key forum for trade, security, and climate cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Kim's experience in trade policy could shape U.S. engagement with Southeast Asian economies.
Finally, Ademola Adewale Sadiq is nominated as U.S. Director of the African Development Bank. That role will influence how the U.S. leverages multilateral financing for infrastructure, health, and climate projects across Africa.
All these nominations require Senate confirmation. The process involves committee hearings, typically the Senate Judiciary Committee for judges, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for diplomats, followed by a full Senate vote. If confirmed, the appointees can begin work within weeks, affecting policy implementation almost immediately. Committee meeting spotlight.
On April 14th, the House Rules Committee convened to consider a slate of bills. The agenda included the FIRE Act, House Bill 6387, which updates the Federal Information Resources Management Act to improve cybersecurity across federal agencies, a response to the rise in ransomware attacks since 2020.
The Red Tape Act, House Bill 6398, and the Fences Act, House Bill 6409, were also on the docket as we discussed earlier. The committee's role is to set the terms of debate, how many hours each side gets, whether amendments are allowed, and whether the bills move to the floor.
The meeting also covered House Concurrent Resolution 1156, the Tax Policy Support Resolution, and House Bill 8035, which amends the FISA Amendments Act of 2008 to extend certain surveillance authorities through October 2027. That extension is part of the ongoing balance between national security and privacy, a debate that dates back to the original Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978.
By moving these items through the Rules Committee, the House can schedule them for floor consideration in the coming weeks, which means they'll soon be part of the public debate. Congressional Daily Records.
The congressional record for April 15, 2026, shows the House meeting under Speaker pro tempore Randy Fine. After the usual prayer and pledge of allegiance, members delivered one-minute speeches on topics ranging from a successful military rescue mission in Iran to worsening air pollution levels.
Notably, a resolution was introduced to direct the president to withdraw U.S. armed forces from hostilities with Iran, a direct echo of the War Powers Act resolution discussed on April 14th. That resolution reflects Congress's constitutional authority under Article 1, Section 8 to declare war and to check the executive's use of military force.
The April 14th record highlighted the same War Powers resolution, with Representative Courtney urging a yes vote to reclaim Congress's role. He cited the loss of 13 American soldiers and hundreds of civilian lives, underscoring the human cost of unilateral action.
Both days also featured recognitions of local heroes and discussions of the Forest Service reorganization and the Rural Health Transformation Program. Those programs aim to streamline federal land management and stabilize rural hospitals, issues that directly affect constituents in less urban districts.
The daily records remind us that while high-profile legislation grabs headlines, a lot of congressional work is about honoring constituents, addressing regional concerns, and maintaining the procedural balance between debate and action. Putting it all together.
So what does all this mean for everyday Americans? The Emergency Reporting Act and Kerry's Law Reporting Act could make emergency calls more reliable, potentially saving lives. The Red Tape Act and Fences Act aim to cut bureaucratic delays while protecting communities from wildfires, both translating into lower costs and safer neighborhoods.
The Biotech Education Bill and the Health Career Training Act could open new pathways to high-pay, high-skill jobs, especially for students in underserved areas. Meanwhile, the Copper Amendment and the expanded definition of higher education institutions could strengthen supply chains and medical training, supporting the transition to a greener economy.
On the foreign policy front, the Haiti TPS bill offers humanitarian relief, and the nominations to ASEAN and the African Development Bank signal a continued U.S. focus on strategic regions. The judiciary nominations will shape how laws, like the Clean Air Act amendments or the red tape provisions, are interpreted in courts.
Finally, the War Powers Resolution and the FISA extension remind us that the balance of power between Congress and the President remains a live issue, with direct implications for national security and civil liberties. What to watch for?
In the coming weeks, keep an eye on the House Rules Committee's scheduling of the Fire, Red Tape, and Fences bills, as well as the Senate's action on Lulu's law and the Haiti TPS bill.
Also watch the Senate confirmation hearings for the district court judges and the diplomatic nominees. Those votes often signal the broader political climate.
That's a wrap for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us on Capital Catch-Up.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back soon with the next round of congressional analysis.